Welcome to this tutorial on Design Builder. Over the next few minutes we are going to create a typical floor of a mid-rise building, where our primary objective here is first to help you recognize and confidentially use some of the fundamental commands within Design Builder. And second, and most importantly, to clearly connecting your existing knowledge of building physics and modeling and building modeling to put it into a software workflow. So first up, we need a new canvas. So let's start by creating a new file. So we press here, new file, and we need to give our project a title. So let's call it my first building. For this trial setup, we will skip all this additional information for now, but a crucial step will come later. So we just are going to focus on the geometry. So we press OK. And let's take a moment to look at the Design Builder interface. We recognize that the screen has many different areas. So if you are new to this, probably all this information is overwhelming. So that's okay. We don't dwell on every menu item right now. So instead we are ready to dive straight into building creation. So you're going to become naturally familiar with all the parts as we work. So first, let's test our perspective. Look at the view here in the rotation in the top right side. Here we can see different kind of views. And then we can choose, for example, plan. And now we are ready to define our project. So we are going to add a new building to the site. Go ahead and click the Add Building button that is right here. And then a new window will pop up asking you many different information and different building details. So for now, let's focus just on the geometry of the building. So we are going to press OK and move on. So we are going to create a basic shape of our floor. The add block bottom is right there. And then we are going to make the overall planned perimeter of the apartment building. So look over the left and side of the screen, and then there are different drawing options. This drawing options panel lets us define different information. So a shorter, let's say that a building option here is to put a building block that is extruded. So we should confirm this information, and then we're going to change the height. We're going to go for a 3.05 meters altitude. So this will create a 3D shape that is with a rectangular base and a specific height of 3.05. So now we look at the perimeter part, and then instead of polygon, let's put rectangle. So we shift our attention to the drawing area now, and we're going to see that we have different dimensions. Now we do click, and then as we move the mouse, we're going to see different dimensions there popping up. So this is not what we want. Probably we want exact dimensions. So what we're going to do is just start typing. We are going to type with the keyboard, just with the keyboard, the number 4. So only with the keyboard, the number 4, and we see in the left that this number 4 has appeared there, here, and then you see that we can continue writing the dimensions there. So let's do it again, click, we move, and then just with the keyboard we press 4, 6, comma, 3, 3, then semicolon, the other to indicate the other dimension, and then it's going to be 16 meters, 92 centimeters. So let's press enter, and there you have it. We have our building block. It has appeared. We can change the view, and then with the axometric view we see the building. So this is our first building block. So if you recognize, this will represent one floor of the mid-rise building apartment. Now we create that we have the object created, we have this building block, then this is represented as a single thermal zone. We confirm this by looking in the building, opening the list, and we see that there is one block and there is only one thermal zone that is called zone 1. Then we open the list and we can see the different elements. So we have ground floor, roof, and we want that every apartment of the floor to be just one zone. So we click on the block, and then we have we put the plan view to more comfortable work. And what we're going to do is to create a thermal zone for each of the apartments on the floor. So we go to the navigation panel that is here, and then what we're gonna see when we have to click in the top part, there are new buttons. As soon as we click in the block option, there are new buttons, and this option there is one option that allows us to draw partition now. So if we are clicking in the building, we see different buttons. We don't see this draw partition, for example. So remember, we have to click on the block, and then on the block we have all these options, and then these draw partitions. With this option, we are going to draw all the thermal zones and that will represent the apartment. So once we do that, the cursors have changed. We see that in the left a drawing options appear. So in the partition type, we have this drop down that is the line type, and then we have a straight line. So we choose that one, and then in the partition type, there we can select standard. We have two options: standard partition and virtual partitions. What we want is a standard partition because these standard partitions are related to physical building objects. These are walls that have thermal properties. A virtual partition, when we use that, we don't need to add any thermal properties like U values because they are just virtual. So we have to decide, and what we are going to decide is to make the apartment 11.58 by 7 meters, 7.52, and then to draw this partition accurately, there are different methods. Let's use a method that allows us a precise measurement. So when we put the cursor close to any of the lines, the shape changes. So when here is a red dot, for example, and then when we go close to a corner, then it's shaped into a square, and we also notice that there are measurements that are measuring the distance. So now we are going to move the cursor close to the edge to a block that is to a line that is far from the other line. So for that line, and so we see that here and then we click there, and then we move, and then it allows us to enter a precise dimension. So we do the same. We press with the keyboard 11.58. Remember, it's just with the keyboard, and then the 11.58 appears. So we do this, and if we don't do it, we can have like different dimensions. So once we do it, we press enter, and then we can continue drawing. But we just press enter one more because I only want to have this as a reference line. So then now that we have the reference, notice that there is a red point that appears at that distance. So this is going to be helpful for us as to have the exact dimension. So what we're going to do is to now when we go close to this area, we see that this point is in 11.58 because it's taking the reference of this line. So we press click, and then we go down, and then we write again just with the keyboard 7.62. You see that you see that there it has appeared the dimension. So and this we just press enter once, And then this time of pressing enter again, we're going to complete the room. If this happened to you, like the software direct you to another point, yeah, we just zoom in, and then we can just select the line that we want. And there we have this new thermal zone. You see that zone number 2 has appeared, and it's also in the list on the left side. There is our new thermal zone 2. So what we are going to do with this line, we just use it as a reference. So we select the line to delete it, no? So when we have the arrow, first we press escape, then we have the cursor changes to an arrow, and then we click it, and then we see that it's in red. So the line is in red, not the zone. And then we just press delete, and then, well, in this case, this pop up, and then we just delete the reference line. So this was our first apartment. And because every apartment is going to be a thermal zone, so to complete this drawing and fill the rest of the apartments, we are going to use exactly the same method. So we are going to do this very fast here to complete all the rest of the apartments. So DesignBuilder has different ways to draw the dimensions of a building. I'm just using this one because it looks simple for a beginner, but I think that I recommend you to look at tutorials and then see different ways and how you can do these drawings. So we now have all the departments and in the building and in this floor. Now we should name them, because when we are going to get the results, we're going to get these results indicated zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, and it's going to be quite hard to understand which one was, no? So to add a name that allows us to identify the zone, this will help us to remember which zones we are talking about. So now when we come here and to name, for example, this zone, we are going to go to the zone name, just click here, and then, well, because this zone is in the north, we're going to name it north, and it's to the west, so northwest zone. Not anything creative, but it's easier to understand where is the zone in this way. So let's do the same with the rest of the zones. We go to the block, and then we are going to name this zone 3. Then let's put north 1, let's put north 2, then let's call it northeast. Then we are going to add we're going to call this southwest, and then S1, S2, and then we can name this southeast. And then we have it. We have there and then in the zone 1 in the middle, well, this will be our corridor, right? According to our building. So let's name this corridor. Now, yeah, you can name the zones as you want, but again, let's go to the isometric view, and yep, now we see that we have different zones representing the different apartments in this floor. So we go to the building, and there is it. Now let's move to. Now we have defined our apartment zones, where let's explore some of the critical thermal information. The same, the software automatically give thermal information to our building. So when we click on the northwest zone, for example, we see that different surfaces are displayed. like this, and then we see, for example, the ground floor and the roof. Now if we click on the ground floor, then we initially are going to see that there is, for example, this specific symbol like in this area, and well, we are going to understand what the symbol means. No, this means that the floor is connected to the ground through the surface. So there is heat transfer between this floor and the ground. If we want to modify this property, we can do it by going to clicking on the ground floor in this part, and then in the top we see layout, then we see construction. When we go to construction, we see the different information. So now we here in the properties, and we see there is one because agency, and in there are, well, I want to say that text in blue means that is a predetermined text, is by default, and when this is in red, it means that we have set the property. So we have made some changes from the predetermined for the default values. So the red here, auto, it's in red because I changed it before recording this video, but it should appear in the default, in blue by default. So this adjacency auto means that there is contact between the floor and the ground. So this means that, so this is how DesignBuilder assign it, because following the geometry rules. So now what we're going to do is to check what happened to the symbol if we change the value to, for example, not adjacent to ground. Then we go back to layout, and now we see like the symbol has disappeared. So this helps us to understand the connections, the symbols, and in this case it's like adiabatic because there is no connection to the ground. And then we are going to leave it in auto. And I suggest to explore the surfaces. For example, let's look at a typical internal partition in this side. So this is one wall that is between two zones. And go back to layout, and here we see we go to construction, and we can, for example, change the adjacency to, for example, adiabatic. And now when we go back to the layout, we should see that the symbol has appeared, and this symbol here indicates that the surface is adiabatic, so there is no heat transfer through the adjacent surfaces. So let's change quickly back to the default values and continue our work. So now let's talk about the heart of our model, that is going to be the construction materials. This step is crucial to the modeling, so we are going to give the properties of walls, floors, windows, and other surfaces, and this will affect our building heat transfer. So we are go to building, and then in the property panel we see that we have different constructions for different elements in the envelope. This, when we click, this opens different definitions, and we should get going. Little by you're going to get familiar with what we are seeing, and then here the template, for example, is essentially a package of different construction definitions for the entire building. So you can inspect any existing material also by selecting it and clicking off them, and then into the right we see that where it says edit view, and then create a copy. We're going to click on show data. Oh, here it is. It says name, and then we see all the information about the building materials. So in this panel we can see the name, we can see a thickness, for example, of this solid brick wall material. In the upper part, we can go to see the image. We see the different layers that it has, and it is calculated. We see calculated values, like very important one is the U value. We go to cost, and then we see the cost that we can assign a cost that will be helpful if we are doing life cycle analysis, for example. We go back, and then we can press just cancel, and then let's come back to something else. Well, I have here this. If I choose this material, then pressing in there, when we press there in the three dots, we can choose a different one, and then we have a different predetermined constructions in well, they come with the DesignBuilder library. But we haven't, if we want to create a new wall constructions, if we just select there, we can select one, and we can use it as a base to create our new construction. So to create a new construction, we're going to press in the button where it says, well, we have add new items, but what we're going to do to make it easy is we can create, well, add a new item from scratch, and there is a new construction. Now we can give it a name. We just put we create a test construction for now, and this we are going to add a number of layers. Let's say that we want to add 3 layers, and then this indicates from the layers are indicated from the outermost layer to the innermost layer. And then here in this layer, this is the selected material. So let's say that we want to change the selected material of the outermost layer to put just cement plaster, like this mortar. So let's select the material. So we can double click, and then we can put also the thickness. So let's say that is 0.2, and leave it just how it is. The thickness is in meters. So now let's go to the middle layer. We have this layer number 2. This is going to be in the middle. So let's say that we want a brick. Let's choose a brick. We see here a list of materials. So let's choose something that can be common, like bricks. We use this brick burn, and we just double click on it, and then it has changed, and then we can select a new thickness. And this one, because it's the mortar, let's leave it just in 0.018 millimeters. So now we are going to change the thickness here. We can leave it in 0.2 meters, and then for the innermost layer, remember that the layers are organized from outermost to innermost. So we choose again the cement mortar in the material list, and this time we're going to give it 0.012 meters. So we have defined our layers of these materials, and if we want to see the properties, we can go, for example, if we go to image, we see like the different layers of the construction. We see that they are organized from outermost to innermost, and here we see the information, the important U value that is automatically calculated by Energy Plus. Then if we go back here, we just save the material by pressing OK. Well, the construction by pressing OK. Sorry if I mix sometimes material with construction. Construction is a combination of materials, of layers of materials. Now, if we go to select this wall test construction, external walls, and then we press yes, and when we want to select a material, we press 3 dots, and then we have this list of construction, pardon. And then we select this, for example, this we see, and if we see we can see the properties of this. But I want to show you something, that when we select the properties, we see this locked library data when we select a material for a construction from the list, and then this means that we cannot edit it. So in the I should have mentioned this before, and then when we select our construction, the one that we just have created, if we go again to this wall test construction that we create, so we are going to see, I want to show you that when we go to see the data, so this is our construction, and then when we go to see in the right part, that is our wall test construction, and then we can we can copy it, and if we copy, for example, our construction, and then what we're going to have is a copy, right, that is in the name. And then in this copy, we can change all the insulations. So for example, when we create the copy, I just created this copy to be able to edit and over the one that we have. We can do this also. We can create copies also from the library. So we go to insert layer in the right, and then we can insert a new layer, and then this, let's say that we're going to insert a layer in the position number 3, and then this layer is going to be insulation. It's here an insulating material using the list, and then DesignBuilder has different options, and then we select this extrude polystyrene, and the material have changed, and now we can add a thickness. So let's put let's say put 0.5 meters thickness of insulating material, and then we press OK, and then we see it has appeared in the position number 3. So in the position number 3, we have now the insulating material. Remember, it was done with insert layer at the right. So everything now has changed. You can see in the image this new layer has appeared. So this new insulation has been added. And the U values have changed. Now you remember it was 2 point something, and now we have 0.5. So this is a way that we can also read the constructions from existing constructions. So now let's see what is happening if we just picking the material we want to set a U value. So we have the option here, set a U value. Imagine that you are in the early stage of the design and you want to pursue a specific U value, no? Instead of so you say I want the equal to be 0.5 U value, it has 0.4 as U value. We press OK, automatically DesignBuilder is going to recognize that it should increase or decrease depending on the dimensions, the insulating material that we added. So we recommend you to increase it from 0.5 to 0.0698. So we just press OK, it automatically has changed, and now we go to calculate it, and then we see that U value is the U value that we have chosen, the 0.4 U value. So this is another way to create constructions, and one thing that we can do is if we don't know This is one thing we can do if we don't know the materials that we want. So we press OK and we continue moving forward. So now, we have defined the construction for external walls, and then for our project we could also have material constructions for the other surfaces. So if we go into the list, and when we go to this wall test construction here, let's select it, and then this is the wall test construction with insulation, the one that we just have created. And then we can also, if we go again to the check the data, we see that if we leave it, and then if we want to create a new if we want to edit a material, imagine that you don't have a material that is not there. So we go to the material, we select the material, and then we create a copy from the material for this material. And once we create that copy, it's going to appear in the bottom part. It should be a copy of a brick. So this is what happens if you want to create a new material. So we click on the copy of brick burn, and then we go to edit to show data. When we go to the data, look at this. It appears like this model data, no? It means that this is data from the model, so we can edit it. And what we can, we can, if we can't do it, as I showed you before, when we open another material, it says locked library data. So this is locked for the is only those are default values by DesignBuilder. So we go back to the material, to the copy of brick, and then we can change the conductivity, specific heat, density, or whatever other property we want to change to have our new material that is not in the list. So we press cancel, let's put it back into this brick. So we press OK. And once we were satisfied with all our constructions, we can give our template a name. So this saves your entire set of custom definitions and makes them available to load into a future project. So this shows how powerful your building workflow can be for all your designs. So now so if we want to use the template function, we can go to select the template, go to edit data, and then once we are in the edit data, we can give it, for example, a new name. Let's put in the name test that we are using for all this. And then when we go to walls or other part, we can, for example, in the external part, we can choose our wall test construction with insulation. This it appears there, and then we apply the template, this template, and then we have it there. So another thing about these changes is the construction is if you select here a single wall. So let's go to one of our zones, for example, and the north one, and then let's go to one of the walls, and so we see this here wall test construction with insulation that is according to this master that we have created. So because it's reference to our template, this is in color blue because it's the reference with the building. What happens if we change it to just for this wall? No, we make a change to, for example, wall test construction, no, and we are going to see that now it changed to red. So this means that here we have something that is different from the template. So this change in the construction is going to be very important because now we have broken the parent relationship with the building level. So this is what it means, this change of color to red. This is called hard heaping. So what happens is if we select now a different construction, for example, this wall wood frame, well, all the other walls should have changed. All the other external walls should have changed to this wall wood frame. For example, here in N2, we have this wall. The construction of the external wall have changed, but in the one that we did the change by ourselves, that it was in N1 in this wall, we see like the construction is still as wall test construction and is indicated in red. So we broke this parent relationship. We should we should think before doing this, because this relationship cannot be restored to the parent link. So this makes our workflow more tiresome, because we have to, if we break this relationship, we have to do it again and again and again. So we are going to, we have to be aware of where we have done these changes. What we're going to do is going to come back to the wall construction with insulation. And now we have to move back, well, we have to move it back here, because we have broken this relationship. This is called hard heating again, no? So we should avoid to do this until the end of our project. So let's move on. Now we have defined our constructions. Let's address the common sources of heat gains. That is, one of them is windows. So DesignBuilder has fantastic tools to design the windows, to address the heat gains through the windows. So we click on the building, and then we see in the property panel we have this banner that is called openings. We click in there, and then we are going to see different options for the glazing type. Now, if we let's click here in the preferred layout, we have this layout, and then it's set preferred height. We see that we have 30% glazed. So we click on the three dots, and then we get this window. So let's increase it to, for example, 80%. And this 80% glaze is going to make a change in our building. So let's go back to layout and see what happened. So we notice that the windows have changed. So now we have more windows. Now when we rotate the building, we see that there is more window area. And let's go back to openings and to check this difference again. Well, let's reduce it and see what happens. Let's see, for example, to 10% glazed. So now when we do this, we see that we have now fewer, we have reduced the window area, no? They say it's notoriously smaller. So let's come back, and then we can just leave it in this 30%. Okay, we press OK. And now if we want to create our own windows, we can change some of these parameters. And so we have here, for example, we have different types. Well, this is the information for the window layout. So when we can also create a copy, as we have done before for the constructions. So once we create a copy, we can edit the information of the layout. So then we press edit data. We give it a name. For example, we are using test. Then notice that we have this model data in red. So this is going to help us. This is indicators that we can change the values. We have the window to wall ratio. the width of the windows, height, spacing. So this is a quick way to make the different windows and the different window distribution over the surface. So I recommend you to go there and just try it by your own, how these changes are going to affect your windows. One thing that we can do also in DesignBuilder is to, if we can change also the windows for a single wall. We can select, let's just select our one of our zones. Let's select one of our just one of our of the walls, and when we go, for example, to this N1, we select this wall. There is the exterior wall that's there, and now that the wall is selected, let's go and change the window to wall ratio. So we go to openings and then the layout, and then to have a different opening layout, let's put something that is going to have a notorious effect so we can observe the changes. We can go to the three dots and then we select 100% glazed, so we notice that there is a big change, and it's going to be easy to spot with the rest of the walls in the building. Now we come back to building, and then there are the walls that have 100% windows. So this we have now this 100%. And also this is something that we can also we change the window by each wall, and then this DesignBuilder have different options to address our window geometry. I suggest you that for initial design, so we just keep to the simple options that DesignBuilder gives us. What happens if we want to create overhangs to the windows to have some shadings? Where we go to openings, and then we want to add we go to this overhang here in shading. We see that it has local shading option, and then we see that it has type as overhang. So we have this 1 meter overhang, and then we go back to layout and we rotate the building, and we can see the overhangs of our building. We see that all the windows have these overhangs. So one other thing that we can do, if we have this overhang, for example, we can have if we change to 70%, we change the window area, because we have given this overhang, they don't disappear. So it doesn't matter if we do changes after in the layout, the overhangs are going to stay there, because we are indicating them in the shading part of the openings. So if we want, we can also change the overhang type. We have different options like louvers, like combinations of overhangs, and these other types that you can also explore. For example, let's pick one louvre, and then we can change the properties if we want. As always, we create a copy, and after creating a copy, we can edit the data. Then we see all this information that we can change. Well, let's change the name first. We have all this information for the loops, and then we can change the category, can have some changes in the dimensions, in the angles, different properties. So I recommend you to go and explore all the different possibilities that we have. So finally, and let's say that we also have this opening, and we can change also the glazing type. We know that windows have different glazing type. We know glazing type. We press the 3 dots, and then we have different types. This shows the simple single clear 3mm window. Then we have it there, and as always, well, we can also create a copy and edit the data from this single clear 3mm. We change the name, and there we see that we can have, for example, we can edit the number of layers. So remember that when we see this model data, is that we are allowed to edit the material. So we go to numbers of layers, and then we have different different layers that we can add. We have this window gas type between the windows, and here the DesignBuilder also gives us international information about the windows. So once again, I recommend, if you have different types of windows, I recommend you to explore the different options that you can create. But as always, start simple into the beginning of your design. So we can also change the frames and dividers. These are going to be very important elements when designing buildings because of the thermal bridges that you can create. So let's go to frame dividers. We have the constructions. We have the different, for example, let's pick aluminum with thermal break. And we can see the data that it has, and we can, well, here is log because it's from the library. We don't make any changes. We can create a copy and make the changes, but just to show you different properties that it has, so you are aware of all the possibilities. So we have defined the geometry of the emerald, like walls and windows, and then we must tell the simulation how the building is used. So this is through the activity template. So we should go to add some internal heat gain. So we go to activity, and once we're in the activity panel here, we can see the different options that we can indicate the different activity level. So we have this, as for the construction, we have the template that in this case is defined as generic office area. But we are focusing on a residential building, so we can choose just a residential building schedule the activity. So let's use common circulation areas. Let's pick one this for all the zones, and let's click OK, and then we can see all the different information that we have in this template, and we can edit it as we want, but this is going to be our start point. So we're focused on the schedule type here. Well, first we can create a copy. So just to edit some information from this template. Now we create a copy, we put test. Here we see different information about the schedule in the top part. So for example, we see the gains of about the lighting, about the occupancy. We have the density of the occupancy of people per square meter that we have. Then we can have the metabolic rate of people that represent the activity level of these people. The clothing, winter clothing, the cloth insulation is going to be important for the comfort calculations. Then we see that this bar indicated the work day profile from 7 to 24. So we want to make more changes to the scale to have something more specific to our conditions. We can select the schedule, and then in one of these schedules we can also create a copy of this one, and once we are there we can edit the data. And then here we have different, let's give it a name, and then we have different options to change information. We have this schedule that is for all the days is divided by months, and then in this one here we see that in the schedule we can make some changes in the operation. When we put a date, we can, for example, for certain hours, we can change the occupancy, and we have the time, and we have the percentage of use, of presence. So we see that these schedules are very, they're very flexible, and we can add some of our, according to our needs. Once again, I recommend to start simple, and then continue, as we continue with the design process, we just continue editing the schedules. And we can change the, we can also see the schedule, as we were mentioning, the metabolic, the clothing, and then we can also change the air velocity that is going to affect the comfort calculations. And one important parameter are the heating set points. So we have the heating and the cooling set points. So if we have some calculations for energy use, and then this is going to be very useful. Then we also have the power density of the office equipment. So, and then we also have the lighting density. So this, what else we have here? So as you recall, these are all the information about the internal gains of a building. So this is very important to define. So the last key element that we need to define before running the simulation are the air change mechanism. As most of our buildings are going to have some control of natural ventilation, and we are going to define this natural ventilation, and we are also going to define the infiltration. So to define natural ventilation, we go to up to the settings, and then in the setting part, there is here in the top screen, we see like we have different information again, and then in natural ventilation it says schedule ventilation, and that is the simplest way to model the natural ventilation. Let's keep it there. We can go to enter calculator that is for example, to apply from some standards of overheating. And just keep it there, and then in the filtration units we can also have different units, and just keep it in one air exchange per hour. So then we have more information here, and then in advanced natural ventilation there is the model of airflow through holes and virtual partitions. This is set there by default, and we also have the airflow through internal openings. Let's click it there. This activated, so it's going to be the airflow rate per opening area, and then it's going to be, it's important to activate it because this is not activated by default. So let's press OK there, and then we have started at our definition of our natural ventilation. But then this is not going to be counted unless our HVAC system ensures that the building has this natural ventilation in its operation. So let's click in HVAC there in the bottom, in the upper part. Then we are going to choose a template that has an HVAC that has these natural ventilation options. So we have this display, we have different options here, and then in this case we are going to model our building. So let's say that we don't have any HVAC and we only have this natural ventilation. So now we see that we have like this mechanical ventilation that is not, we should put it is not on, so we only have natural ventilation, so don't check it. So then in the natural ventilation we can, this part is important. We should check that it's in on, and then but this just to be clear, not only it is not the only mode with the natural ventilation option. You can also combine HVAC with natural ventilation. For example, we have these electric storage heaters that they have natural ventilation. These electric convector heaters, right? They also have, in this case, because they are heaters, they have also the option of heating. But then let's leave the mechanical ventilation in off. And then in this case, we also have this natural ventilation. And if we always need to be sure that it's on when we want to model something with natural ventilation. And we are going to go back to the just natural ventilation to have a building that it doesn't have any HVAC system. So this, what we're going to do now is in the natural ventilation, we have this outside air definition method that is by zone. So we can change the outside air, the changes per hour that we have. And let's say that it is going to enter 10. No, let's make this, change this value instead of having 5, let's change it to 10 air changes per hour. Then when the natural ventilation is activated, well, now to define the natural ventilation rate, also we come to the activity, and then in the activity we are going to have a ventilation, and then here is these ventilation set points. So these set points indicate us when the natural ventilation is going to be activated. It is activated by value. Now is a minimum temperature definition and is in 24. So this means that is going to be activated once the room hits 24 degrees. We can also have this by schedule, and but let's keep it in by value. So in this case, so to set up, finally we need to set up the infiltration. Remember that we have ventilation and infiltration. These are different types of indoor air exchange. Then to set up the infiltration, these are the unwanted air that is, well, uncontrolled air that is entering into the building. So we have 0.7. Let's keep it in this 0.7 here in the air dryness part in the construction label. Let's leave it like that. So that we can put something lower if we want. No, we have depending on the information that we have of our building. So now we have defined the lateral ventilation and the infiltration of our building. So we have, at this point, we have defined well, all the important information about the building envelope, the building use, the infiltration, the internal gains, the ventilation. So, but we said that this was going to be a mid-rise apartment building, so we can, this is just one floor, so we can replicate this floor to have more floors in our building. So what we go to is clone it. We go to the building, and in order to clone it, we are going to select the object. So now we see that the block is highlighted in red. And we see that in the upper part, when it's highlighted, it appears new options. You have this clone option. We select the bottom corner, and then we click here, and then we put it in the top part, in the corner that is in the top. And then we do the same to have a 3-floor building. And now we have, well, we just press escape, and now we have we press OK there, and then we have our mid-rise apartment building. So let's go to see the full building. Yeah, we have a building with the 3 blocks. Remember that when we clone it, we have copied all the information from our first block. If we want, we can also rotate the clones, but let's keep it. Let's not do this. Let's just keep it in the simple form. But this is something that you can do if you want. And then, yeah, remember, finally, to simulate, we just go to the, first we have not indicated location, so we go to location, and then we select Lima as location. So we are going to go to, we have a different weather files. We have, these are typical meteorological year files. So we select this, we go to Peru, and then we have this library, and then we go to Lima. We can pick Lima, and then we can select this data. And once we select the data, we, well, in my, you see now all the information about Lima, the latitude, longitude, and other relevant information. So we have also, well, the design base and way much more information in order to use the file for different kind of studies of our building. So to run the simulation, with the bottom part to simulation, we press simulate, and we update the data. So we have a message here. It says that is, well, that the weather data is not installed, so we install the file. And then we have this, well, it's loading. And here we have the information about the weather data information of the file. So let's go back to edit. And now we are going to set up our simulation. We are click on the building. We go again to settings. And within the settings, we are going to go to the label that is simulation. And once we are there, we can, for example, choose a period, just a short period from this month of January. We can simulate up to 1 year. And the time steps, we are just going to leave it in 2. That the more the time steps, the more it's going to take the simulation. We have other kind of advanced information that we can change in our simulation. So we're just going to do a simple simulation. So we just go to OK, and then it's going to update, and then we go to simulation again in the bottom part. So this now is loading, and then we update the data. And well, we are required to enter again the information. Where we just check the information, we see the outputs that we have. Also, we can also select different kind of outputs. I recommend you to review with all the information about the outputs that you can get. So these are very useful to just have summaries of the performance of our building. So yeah, we press OK, and is now running the simulation. So you see that we have defined all the parameters, and then we can just simulate. And we can do this even from the first moment, because DesignBuilder have these default values for our buildings now. But let's see what we get now. We have this calculated, and now we have some results. So we have some results about, for example, these results are referred to the average of the building. So we have different outputs here, and then we see that we have the temperatures, and then we can have operative temperature, radiant temperature, air temperature. So this is the average for the whole building, no, because that is what's selected in the left side. So we also have information about the outside temperature. And this information, we can also download it and edit it, and we have different kind of report. But if we go to the zone, to the N1 zone, then we are going to see the results from this specific zone. So we see here the indoor temperatures, for example, of this zone. Then if we change to another zone, for example, we are working on the left side. If we change to the corridor, then we're going to see the results for the corridor during this month of January. Then if we go to summary, we are going to have some reports about the total energy use, about the different other values that are important, especially when you have HVAC systems installed. And I recommend you to continue exploring what DesignBuilder can have to when it comes to report data, with the output that you can have, how to export the data so we can manipulate it in different ways in our software. We go back to it. Yeah, go back, and this just was a quick example of what you can do in DesignBuilder. I recommend you to continue exploring the software, to going through tutorials. The best way of learning a software like this is by doing and asking questions to people that has more experience than you to learn what is possible to do and what is not possible to do with the software. That is very useful. So thank you for watching these tutorials and see you in the next video.